Since my wife Krista had left her appointment at Ben Clare, we're looking at joining Sioux Falls Asbury, and they recently celebrated their 75th anniversary. And one of the things Pastor Kip talked about is just really opening up the photo album of their past and showing what that congregation 75 years ago that just started Asbury, what the foundation they laid for where they are today. And most of those individuals, obviously they're no longer with us, but they planted the seeds for where they are today.
Well, when you mention that it's seed planting and that it takes a while for it to all come to fruition, we see that many times in the foundation, that the seeds your grandfather planted, we've seen some of the fruits of that now. And it's, I think, hard for some people that are in that scarcity mindset, that need a quick fix, that are looking for that instant gratification, to understand it's a process in growing. And in the foundation world, we're not a money machine. It's the faith of the beginning of how that's going to turn out for the future of the church or the future of the ministry. Hello, everyone, and welcome to our podcast, For the Love of God, Let's Find Our Why. Today, we have with us Jim Ducker, the conference treasurer in the Dakotas, and Rebecca Trefz, who is the assistant to the bishop for Connectional Ministries.
Close. Connections and Communications.
Connections and Communications. I think you win for the longest title, do you?
I keep trying to, make it even more, but...
Oh, you're trying to add on to it?
Yeah, but that way I won't have to wear a name tag because it will be impossible to fit on there.
Well, I want to thank both of you for joining us today and visiting about what is important to both of you and what you see as ministries throughout the conference, and how our partnership has enhanced some of those, and how together we are working towards helping our churches and our pastors and ministries across the conference. So we'll just start in with Rebecca. Okay. Tell us a little bit about who you are and what you're doing in your profession and how you got to where you're at.
Wow, how long is this podcast?
Well, about as long as your title.
All right, great. Yeah, awesome. So as you said, my current title is Assistant to the Bishop for Connection and Communications, but that's, I think, about the third or fourth title that I've had. I'm in my 12th year of serving on the conference staff. Before that, I served in pastoral ministry in Brandon, South Dakota, and Rapid City, South Dakota, and other things before that in a previous life and that, but I have grown up in the Dakotas. I am third generation United Methodist clergy in South Dakota. And I love the connection with the foundation is really close to my heart because my grandfather, who's a United Methodist pastor, also served as the director of the foundation in the 1980s. And so, so that's kind of where I got to where I am. And what I do, I really work with connectional ministries. So you were right on that, which was really our missions, our camps, things that we do for starting new churches or new ministries, working with clergy development, those kind of the whole thing of our collective work, except for anything to do with, trustees, that's all on Jim. And then,
so you do the programs within the buildings and
right,
structures.
Exactly, within those structures and systems.
Yeah.
And then communications, I lead our communications department and I have a couple staff that work with me in that area.
Great. And Jim, how about you? What brought you to the conference?
Well, the long version or the short version?
Well, we've got some time. Let's go with the middle.
Short version is my wife. She notified me that the conference was looking for a new treasurer about 3 years ago, and lo and behold, here I am. But to back up a little bit, I grew up in Webster, South Dakota, on a farm near Webster, and we still have the family farm in our family. In fact, I was up there last weekend helping with soybean harvest, so always enjoy getting back to do that. But I've taken a little bit of a windy road. I started in accounting and auditing with Grant Thornton when I lived in Dallas, Texas. I was there for about 3 years, and then I had various internal audit roles in 2 banks and then South Dakota State University, my alma mater. Go Jacks.
Subtle.
And, yeah, exactly.
It was nice of you with the word
Yes,
Jackson.
I
over
like
today.
There you go.
Mm.
There you go. But, in between there, I actually did take a 2-year break and co-owned a landscaping and greenhouse business. But after 2 years of working in landscaping, I decided that wasn't a long-term career proposition for me. So, but yeah, long story short, I was doing internal audit for about 15 years or so, and just realized that I needed a challenge, and that was about the time that my wife, Krista, who's also a member of the Dakotas Conference and has served at various United Methodist churches in the Southeastern District, she let me know of the conference looking for a new treasurer. So, one thing led to another, reach out to Rebecca, and here I am. So.
Great.
But we still let him do the lawn work around here, just for
Right,
old time's
exactly.
sake.
Right, yeah.
I was actually pulling weeds just a few hours
Yep.
ago here.
That goes under his trustees'
Yes,
other duties
uh-huh,
as a sign,
yes,
right?
yes.
That's the administration part of my role.
Exactly.
There you
Praise
go.
God.
Great. Well, it's been fun because Rebecca and I started about the same time, and so we've been here almost the same with B and Dave Stuckey. So the four of
yeah.
us are kind of the old timers now, aren't we? Pretty
yeah.
getting there. And Jim, it's been great to have you with the staff and the conference as well. So within your jobs, what is it that gets you up in the morning that makes you excited about going to work and the work that you do and within the conference and for the kingdom?
Well, I'd say for me, first of all, it's our team, the people that we get to work with. And it used to be in this building. Now we're really kind of a hybrid and remote and all over the place, and area staff with Minnesota. But really feeling a part of something that we're all working together toward a common goal. And then it is, as part of that, I've had the opportunity to be out in different churches, communities, working with different pastors, lay leaders. And so knowing the people out there and that common mission and wanting to be a source of support and encouragement for what can feel lonely or challenging to figure out how to be the church in 2025, all those things. So where we can be a source of equipping and encouraging that's what fuels me.
Cool. How about you, Jim?
Yeah, I'd say a lot of the same things. I mean, it really, it's rewarding to really help the people that are out there on the front lines doing the work of our church and our ministries, and to hear the impact stories that they're having and to support those people that are out there. I get questions virtually every day about, simple things like, where's this form on the website, to clergy taxes and some of that administrative stuff that a lot of times clergy, they don't really like a lot of the administration stuff, but it's really important. And so just to be there to really support them in their roles out there.
Because the clergy taxes are just a different beast. Would you call them a beast?
That's an understatement, yes.
And so,
Very unique.
right, and not all accounting firms or CPAs are familiar with it, so it's really a niche, isn't it?
That's exactly right.
And they need some help in that area. What would you say is one of the ministries that has made the biggest impact in our conference?
Oh gosh, biggest impact. I mean, I think, certainly one that comes to mind is camping. Partly because of, you think about the seeds of faith that it's planted. You hear a lot of times through clergy who have said that that's where their call formed. And it's also a great example of connectional ministries. It's trying to all share of our resources to create these spaces set apart that aren't just for, you don't have a membership card to get in. And so, they're really for our churches, but they're really for anyone who wants to be a part of that. And again, in a time and an era when things are chaotic, when there's just so much noise, in so many formats, to have spaces apart, I think are such a gift. And so I definitely think that's one example. But if I could also say, I think there's just an impact is that infrastructure. It is the connection. It is that way of doing things together. Also really, you could name countless things, but I think that's a common denominator.
How about you, Jim? Do you have anything that sticks out with you on the impact?
I mean, I think, all of our ministries impact different people in different ways. One ministry that comes to mind is Solar Oven Partners, when they're building solar ovens for those less fortunate in various countries in Africa and Dominican Republic. And so I just hear the stories of the impact that ministry alone has had. It's huge. And I'd say anything to do similar to what Rex said around camping, youth ministries, because that's where it all starts.
Yeah, in the camping world, it's often you see a person, and when they start to mention the camping or the experiences they had, their face lights up. And it's so much fun to hear about those experiences and see that across the whole area of camping, you know. For many generations, I think one of the greatest camps that they started was the grandparent
Grandparents
camp.
and me,
Yeah,
yeah.
because both generations, and sometimes 3 generations, are there experiencing it together. So,
And that's their formative years. I mean, you know, they'll talk about those stories at those camps for years to come, and that's the foundation that they're building.
yeah. Well, Rebecca, earlier I mentioned that you and I came on at the same time, and one of the things that was one of the first things I remembered of our conversation is what is our why? You know, why were we called here? Why are the ministries that we do here important? But why do we do what we do? Can you just explain that a little bit more and talk about why that is so important?
Yeah, I think I first heard it, Simon Sinek did a TED Talk, or there was a YouTube video or something, and talking about understanding your why and how that really fuels then what you do. And part of that, again, is it keeps you on track. And sometimes it can be a good, honest practice. I mean, when I've done that exercise with churches or leadership teams or whatever, if they're honest, sometimes their why, and when you're asking, like, why do you have your church? Why do you invest in it? Why do you contribute, volunteer, serve, all the things? And it's, well, because I have to, or because I want it to be open for my funeral. And those aren't wrong, but that will shape then how you do ministry, how you make important decisions. But I also then, we would often, one of the exercises we would do would be telling your God story, and so try to help people dig a little deeper to why Jesus mattered to them, what difference faith made in their lives. And there was something about then connecting this deeper why faith matters to why then the church matters, and then what you do with it, that helped them see, okay, if this matters, so we'd use examples, Jesus, rescued me at a time when I was at my wit's end. Jesus made a way where there wasn't a way, or healed something in me physically or spiritually or emotionally. And then I can connect that to, I want others to experience that. This is why I do it, because it made such a profound impact on me. Well, that can get you through a lot of frustrations of ministry, frustrations of being the church, serving when it doesn't feel like you're getting anything out of it. You're getting out of it is, I'm living out of this deep well of why God created me and impacted my life in a way that I want to spread that and share that for the next generation too. That we're seeing so many more, that generations that have no knowledge of biblical stories or the church or some of the basics that we take for granted, and that were so transformatively formative, if you will. So I think that's really kind of where it comes from.
Would you say this is a fair statement that if you would ask many people that were kind of on the fringes and maybe just sort of involved in a church, that they would assume that every church's why is the same? That from the outside looking in, would they, do they think that, well, whether I go to UMC 1 or UMC 2, they all have the same purpose? And is that different?
I think people can lump everything together. Sometimes it's in a more cynical way than others. Well, all those churches just exist as a clique, or to be judgmental, or in positive ways, the church exists because they want to do good. but they definitely can lump things together generically. And I don't think that's the case. Again, I think that's a helpful exercise with your church or your leadership to dig into it, because even around the table, if you've never talked about it, different people have different whys. And so then how do you make decisions about ministries, about where you're making sacrifices or hard decisions if you haven't had those deeper conversations?
So the why can really define the personality of the church and their focus. Why is it so crucial for churches to identify their why and to live out that why and be in communion or in community together, not only for the church but for the community?
I mean, I would say otherwise it just becomes about personal preferences or the winds of change or culture or hard times or scarcity or pet project. Right, and that's personal preferences. It becomes the why is so that it serves me what I want. If I don't hear and share, and again, this goes back to the challenge and blessing of connection is it models also within the local church. You're trying to connect each other and your individual whys, but where's the common thread? And you hear that. I mean, when we worked with churches and you think everybody's got something different, but you start to hear a common, if the Spirit's been moving, there's a common thread. And again, that will guide those decisions. And so I would say even more than a personality, it becomes a heartbeat.
Oh,
Yeah, and I think really knowing and having that collective why focuses time, talents, treasures on a specific purpose, and it really kind of hones in on, making the church more effective and the ministries more effective and having a bigger impact.
well, I know in the generosity, stewardship, fundraising point of view, that those heartbeats, you want to connect that with the heartstrings of the people who have the resources to give to support those ministries. And so that's what we help too, along with those same lines, is help churches identify that so that they can connect those resources with the ministries.
Yeah.
So,
And that is even the aligning of that, because that's what I think about with some of the work the foundation has done. It's also to help the church align their resources to their priorities and think about better ways to use them, so you're getting more of the energy, and that energy is sometimes financial energy, toward the common goal. And so again, I think that work that you do in that way, it just makes it more efficient and effective and stewards it well.
a lot of times if we're doing presentations, and Jim and I are working on more of those together in stewardship and generosity, but I use exaggerated examples of if they don't have that vision and that direction, someone who loves purple carpet that has the resources, the entire church will be full of purple carpet if it doesn't fit within those guidelines and the purpose.
Yes.
So, I mean,
Well, and I like,
No offense to all the purple carpet lovers.
no, everybody that loves purple carpet, sorry, but the whole church of purple carpet would be a
Yeah,
lot.
a lot.
well, it goes back to the question that you posed on our first stewardship and generosity webinar about what would the community miss if your church didn't exist. And so, that's a place to start as far as really honing in on the why.
Yeah, we've got a church in Minnesota that has community concerts, and they're kind of the hub of those activities in the summertime. And if they weren't providing that peace and that fellowship and all of those areas, it would be a big void in the community, because it's on the churchyard and the community relies on that. And it's kind of cool to see how they all come together.
Yeah.
So, okay, Jim, money is tight everywhere.
Sure.
And so how do you see the strength in ministries as we tell the stories and we share about them? And how, when they hear more stories or they're able to provide the stories to the people, how have you seen that strengthen their financial health?
Sure. Well, first of all, it does. I mean, I think, think back to when you yourself was inspired by a story that you might have heard. What does that do? It tugs on those heartstrings. It brings into action and opens up the checkbook, so to speak, on things that support those ministries. So I think, just having those stories forefront's just critical, because everybody wants to know what difference they're making in the community. And especially with younger people nowadays, I think, they really want to know where their dollars are going and the social impact they're having in the community. And so I think it's going to be even more critical going forward than it has been in the past.
And I'd add too, I think about, to my farmer friend here, planting seeds. If you've never seen that crop you're growing, well, I might not, we know that we're asking people to plant seeds that they might never see the fruit of. But if they don't even know what the fruit is, they're going to be less inspired to plant the seed. But if they know, oh wow, it turns into that. And even if I don't get to be here to enjoy it, oh my goodness, I could plant a seed that could create that. Like, that's to me what a story is. It is the fruit that is born from seeds that were planted. And again, a lot of times long before they, the people enjoying it get to.
Well, I was just going to add, since my wife Krista had left her appointment at Ben Clare, we're looking at joining Sioux Falls Asbury Church, and they recently celebrated their 75th anniversary. Mm-hmm. And one of the things Pastor Kip talked about is just really opening up the photo album of their past and showing what that congregation 75 years ago that just started Asbury, what foundation they laid for where they are today. And most of those individuals, obviously they're no longer with us, but they planted the seeds for where they are today and the impact they're having throughout the community now. So it really goes back to that.
Well, when you mention that it's seed planting and that it takes a while for, it to all come to fruition, we see that many times in the foundation, that the seeds your grandfather planted, we've seen some of the fruits of that now. And it's, I think, hard for some people that are in that scarcity mindset, that need a quick fix, that are looking for that instant gratification, to understand it's a process, it's in growing. And, in the foundation world, we're not a money machine, but we do, I know you've wanted us to be a few times, but it's the faith of the beginning of how that's going to turn out for the future of the church or the future of the ministry.
Oh yeah, it really is an open-handedness, because you release it and trust that God's going to bring that harvest, and that is an act of faith. I mean, that's where we always talk about, stewardship and giving it's a spiritual discipline, because you have to trust this is now out of my control, and I have to trust that God's going to work through that. And yeah, that's hard, but it also strengthens our faith when we practice that too.
And recognize it, Sometimes I think it happens in front of people and they don't recognize it because they've moved on, and, and they're back to that instant gratification. They want something to happen like that. Well, let's talk about apportionments for a moment.
Oh boy. Everybody's favorite subject.
Well, I know it's yours. They're often viewed as administrative, that it's something that churches have to do. This is what they tie to the conference. The conference, that's all they want from the churches. How are the apportionments a spiritual practice and a gift that's beyond themselves and working in this connectional system that we're in?
Sure. Well, apportionments, that illustrates our connectionalism as a church, right? First and foremost. But I think, what we've tried to do better is communicate to churches what those apportionments, talking about going back to the stories, telling the stories of the impact that those apportionments have. I mean, if you've had a kid that's gone to camp, or if you've benefited from a DAC youth event as a child, or just a lot of other ministries that the conference manages and administers, that's where those dollars go, is to help support those ministries. And so, if you've had a clergy move from church A to church B, that's covered by those apportionments. So the burden isn't on the clergy member or the church, the local church, to cover those moving expenses. So that's just a few of the many ways that those apportioned dollars are put to good use. And then, of course, from a global reach perspective, a percentage of those apportionments go to our ministries beyond our Dakotas Conference borders. And so again, it goes back to that's part of our connectionalism, and that's, what helps support various ministries across our conference and really around the world.
Yeah, I'd add too, I mean, I think it's about a shared value. Do we share a value that I'm not just looking out for myself, for my church, my whatever, but I care about the whole, that I may not use some of those resources right now. Maybe someday I will. I may not need, our church might not have an emergency where we need a conference support structure, superintendents, finance and benefits, those to come alongside and help us navigate. But you know what? I know churches that have, and we may be that someday.
Right.
And so we want an infrastructure in place, a connection in place that cares for the whole, also maximizes our resources, that we can do more when we each give our little bit to make more of an impact. And so again, that's hard. That requires, again, we are discipled, we are formed by our culture that says, look out for yourself, look out for your own. And it's scarce, hold it tight. And this says, open your hands, care about beyond you, and something that can create a support and a safety net, and also an engine for good in a way beyond what you can. So that's it. It's a countercultural value. So I think that is part of what apportionments are, a representation of a countercultural value.
Well, and it's a little bit of an insurance policy for when they do need that help. That's all, just like medical insurance, you might not need it for a while, but it's building a pool to be able to help at another time. And some of these churches do need some of those services immediately, and some might not need them for years. But knowing that because that it's there and that you're able to use it. Okay, so I know both of you are on the phone with churches and pastors, probably on close to a daily basis. What are some of the other services that are provided from the conference office and from the finance office? Jim, what else besides collecting apportionments?
Sure.
We do what else do you do during the day?
The first thing comes to mind is overseeing the benefits, clergy benefits, whether it be health insurance, pension. Clergy, they have a lot of questions about those things, and they're important. And so our job is to help clergy take care of themselves, right? So, we get a lot of questions on that, from changing pension contributions to whether something's covered with their health plan. And of course, we lean on WestPath is our resource there too. And then just, from, like I said earlier, questions about where is this form online, to clergy taxes and the details about how the housing exclusions work. And they might have questions about, what's the role of a finance committee chair or treasurer. Recently, a pastor reached out to me, and she wanted a kind of a 1-hour training session with their finance committee chair and their new treasurer. They're all fairly new in their roles. And so we had about a 90-minute Zoom of just kind of talking through what are their roles, what are the different processes, and so on. So training, we train new clergy on everything that relates to administration. And so, those are just some of the things that we resource and equip the clergy and church leaderships to really help them help their ministries.
Yeah, great. Rebecca?
Yeah, and I mean, certainly along the clergy lines, as I know that you've visited with Diane Owen, our area director of clergy well-being. So things along those lines of coming alongside pastors and resourcing and equipping. We're also, we try to provide different trainings. So we've got some folks that are trained to do safer sanctuaries training to help churches and go around in that, and to answer questions. So getting them connected with those individuals. Or we're doing a webinar on AI in ministry, and both how to use that, how to use it ethically, what to consider from a theological perspective, that type of thing. So looking at different trainings for stuff that's relevant and timely. We also, kind of along with the communication side, tried to create resources. We just started a partnership with Amplify, which is a platform, and we call it the Netflix for Bible Studies. Do you have to do like a trademark shout out there probably, or a ding that we just mentioned that? But
Netflix?
yeah,
Oh, okay.
there. But that is that we hope will be a great platform for discipleship, for leadership training, for individuals and churches. And so providing things like that, or resources like our Very Dakotas Christmas, where we create all the elements of an entire worship service for churches to use, particularly that Sunday between Christmas and New Year's. And so again, trying to help equip the churches with what they need to do their ministry.
Great. So if you could think of one story, I mean, we talked about programs that are connectional and inspire, but what's one story that each of you can think of that really had an impact on you of a ministry that's happening in the conference?
So I wasn't sure if you wanted current or past or just experience of that. So is it okay if I just share? Yeah.
You can share whatever you want,
you.
Rebecca.
Well, first I was going to share every time we have an event and somebody says, wow, that was better than expected.
Oh my gosh.
So that's probably...
Remember how surprised we were when we first started and we'd hear that?
And
we're like,
all the time,
What
still
we-
to this day, 12 years later, over and over, wow, that was better than expected.
doesn't it make you wonder what they expected?
Well, yes, but I'll take the wins where I can get 'em.
Okay, yep,
So
we do. We
that,
celebrate those.
But the other actually goes back to the why and the God story conversation. Was when we were doing a training, and we're again doing this, telling your God story, and it was with I don't even remember where the church was, but I remember this older, little kind of gruff farmer, rancher kind of guy, didn't say a lot, but he was there, he was participating, and we asked them to say, tell their, why Jesus, and so, we would give them examples, Jesus is my friend, I understand Jesus is my, rescuer, my healer, examples like that, and help give them language to tell what Jesus and what faith in Jesus means to them. And part of that, I think what was transformed about watching that is that you could tell they had never been, like, the language that they knew was, from other denominations that just didn't fit them. And it didn't align, so they didn't have language for it. And so we're trying to give that. And then we went around and asked people to share. And I just remember this gentleman sharing and like getting tears in his eyes, and it just took me aback, but I realized that it was finally giving him words to voice something so deep that God had so impacted his life, and he shared this story, and it again just broke through the shell, but it was like he had not ever had words or a way to put it that felt authentic to him and who he was and his personality and his context. It didn't feel, and I was like, wow. I mean, that was powerful to be able to help just crack open something that's there, that God's been planting these seeds, working in his life, but to be able to crack that open was really cool.
Yeah, that is cool. And you can feel it in the room when that happens then, can't you? Yeah, that's really cool. Jim?
Yeah, for me, I don't know if there's just that one story that I think about. I think about a lot of little stories that are making a big impact. I was just reading in the Mondays at the Dakotas about what DeSmith's doing with partnering up with a local counseling agency about giving space in their building.
Repurposing.
Repurposing their space to really bring mental health care into their community that's lacking. So it's stories like that. It's stories like what we heard at annual conference with Falkton UMC and what they're doing with the prison ministry, and the impact that that's having. And it's events like at Ben Clare UMC every year they have a ice cream social, and I'd say it's more of a beef, ham, all the fixings social, not just ice cream, but that's just kind of the side. But just how that brings the community. It's a little church east of Sioux Falls in the middle of a corn and soybean field, and there'll be 200 people show up for that every year. And so, and it's really bringing that community together. So it's just a lot of those stories like that just warms my heart and really motivates me on a daily basis. And you hear stories like that every week.
Right. Again, that's what helps you get up in the morning, doesn't it? To know that
Absolutely.
you're making that impact or
Yeah.
helping to make that impact. Because no one does it alone. This is
Right.
a collective and the connection. Okay. So before we let you guys go,
Dun,
let's
dun,
do,
dun.
yeah, let's do a rapid fire. So I'll ask a question and you guys just answer it, and it can be personal or work. It doesn't have to be any, I know. All right,
Okay.
ready? Coffee or tea?
Coffee.
Coffee.
Tea.
Your tea, I'm sure.
Exactly.
Early bird or night owl?
Neither.
That's exactly what I was going to say. I kind of like daytime.
Yeah, middle of the day. This is good. This is good. Yeah.
If I had to choose, I'd say early bird, though.
Okay, all right.
Night owl for me, then, if I had
Your
to choose.
favorite hymn or your favorite worship song? And do you want to break into song, Rebecca? Or?
Would you like me to do a rendition? In the bulb there is a flower. It's 707, Hymn of Promise.
It's all right.
Oh, geez. Amazing Grace.
Oh, there you go. A book or a podcast that has inspired you recently?
I'm a big fan of Holy Post Media, so there's several podcasts that are under their umbrella, and that's probably I'm appreciating most right now.
Do you want to give a little plug to what's inspiring you? The
Oh,
Holy
what about
Post?
just in terms of the way
No,
that,
I mean the podcast. Which one
Yeah.
is it?
Well, it's the Holy Post, it's the Esau McCulley Show,
okay.
it's Curiously Caitlin, Voxology was a spin-off of that, so kind of all of those that fall under, that.
Cool.
Boy, I've listened to a few books on Audible lately. I like my coffee black. Have you heard of that?
No,
but I do like my coffee black, so that's
It's an
interesting.
interesting bent on just, structural racism in America. I think Chris Mutzenberger actually mentioned that to Krista, and we listened to it on the way out to Ohio recently, so that was pretty interesting.
Is it a podcast or a book?
It's a book. I'm
Okay.
sorry. Did I say podcast?
Okay.
Book.
Okay, okay.
One word that you would use to describe the conference today. One word, Rebecca.
That's a problem, when you had one word.
I have one while
Okay.
she's thinking. I'd say hope-filled. I feel like we're coming out of kind of a rough time in the history of our conference, and I feel like there's a lot of inspiration and hope within our leadership and congregations.
I think I come back to connected. It's those relationships, it's those shared ministries, the things, trying not to do it on your own and make sure no one feels like they have to do it on their own.
Great. Anything else you'd like to add or any message you'd like to send out to our listeners?
No, just like I said, it's this team and the foundation's a part of that, and Jim, Jim played it down, but he was an answer to prayer, answering the call to come into this
was.
position, and we have so many, when I think of the people that are working on our team, so many examples of they were the answer to prayer because we weren't sure, and the way that God's provision through people. So thank you for being a part of that, and thank you for being a part of that.
Absolutely.
Thank you for being a part of that.
Yeah, I'd say the same. Just, the people we get to serve with on a daily basis just makes it all worth it. And the ministries and the things that we're doing out in our community are making a huge impact. So just to be part of that is a blessing to me.
Great. Well, thank you both for being with us today, and I just
Absolutely.
appreciate the ministries that you bring to the table and bring out into the conference, and that the work that we can do together. So, thank you.
Thanks, Sheri.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah. Thanks, everyone, for listening today and being with us for our podcast of For the Love of God in Finding Our Why. Until next time.